$1,000 tan line sees Veronica Mars investigating the disappearances of two different girls, Haley DeWalt and Aurora Scott. Aurora Scott has a much deeper connection with Veronica as it leads her back to her own alcoholic mother, Leanne Mars, now Leanne Scott, married to Tanner Scott. And she finds out that, yeah, Aurora Scott is her stepsister, and she actually has a half brother. Whoa! These two missing girls, you think they're related at first. In fact, I mean, the whole title of this is like bullshit. It's a red herring. I think this is the best book. I'll get into it in a second. I'm just giving you the brief rundown of the synopsis right now, in case you were too lazy to read, or if you just want me to get to the good stuff, the insight. Um, Haley DeWalt's disappearance and Aurora Scott's disappearance are not connected whatsoever. Haley DeWalt was murdered by her boyfriend, who sucks, and I hate him. And Aurora Scott, I love her. She is like she was originally trying to dupe and con everyone with Tanner Scott, her father, because Tanner was like the reason why Leanne and Tanner met was at like an AA meeting or something like that, and Tanner was like a recovering con man and con artist, and that's how he brought his daughter Aurora up, like in those situations with him, and kind of fostered a uniquely criminal mind. And I really love Aurora Scott, but of course she staged her disappearance with her father, but then double crossed her father to have as much impact on Veronica Mars as she could, and to get more money out of the community of Neptune. Um, this is a very good book. I love it. Love might be a strong word, but you know what? I feel strongly about Veronica, so sure, I love the book. Why not? The second book is Mr. Kiss and Tell. Um, what's cool about these books is that we get to meet up with certain characters that we didn't get to see in the film. These books came out between the film and the fourth season. So in that book, the first one, we got to hang out with Leanne Mars and see what's going on with that side of her family. Here, we get to meet up with a Grace Manning, Meg Manning's little sister. Leo comes back in a pretty huge way. She gets a dog called Pony. Sheriff Lamb is out as sheriff. Fuck him, he's gone. And everybody wins, and they're happy. And now what's the new sheriff's name? You guys? I was gonna say Langdon, but I was like, this isn't Dan Brown, Zach. It's not Langdon. It's not like she's gonna go and solve some Da Vinci codes. Whatever. This one's like a serial rapist and murderer hangs out at the Neptune Grand. This is everyone's go-to favorite of the two Veronica Mars novels. Everyone says that Mr. Kiss and Tell is the better read, like unanimously, and also that it's just the only important one to read. Fuck all of you who believe that. This is a good book. I always found it difficult to get through. I think that it's trying like to be pretty edgy and super dark. I think people just like it because it is a bit more sorted, but it also feels a bit more like a bit more like I don't know. I don't know. It's a good book, but the $1,000 tan line is the book that I love. This one is the book that I kind of have difficulty finishing. Although I love characters like Petra Landros, who is in this one as well, but and the Neptune Grand I think is a fascinating location. I've always loved the Neptune Grand. I feel like I do have like a thing with hotels that I might have learned from ghost movies or like noir films, but like hotels have always had this kind of poetic like effect on me. Like when I see them portrayed or read about them portrayed in any sort of way that's like kind of morbid. I just love hotels. Okay, and Neptune Grand is one of the most interesting hotels, thanks primarily to my favorite scene in all of Veronica Mars taking place on the rooftop of it with Beeve in the season 2 finale of Veronica Mars. It's a good book. It's a good book. It's just I feel weird calling two books that most people haven't read, even within the fandom, overrated, but it is kind of overrated. It's not like, even if I was being the most charitable person in the world, it's not like leagues above this one. I really like this one. I think that because they talk about like which books you have to read in order to be fully prepared for season four. And honestly, you don't have to read either of them, but they are good. They're supplemental. They're not necessary, but they are both good to read. But people normally say read this one because of Pony and Leo, and that's superficial bullshit. I think that Rob Thomas, it's this one. If you want to know what should prepare you for the spring break bomber of season four, probably read the first novel that deals with the spring break kidnapper, because we get into a lot of the socio economic, those twisted real estate deals that Rob Thomas always seems fascinated with. He always seems extremely fascinated with like in season two, he seems fascinated by Neptune's real estate monopoly, real estate market. He seems just like Chinatown was, just like great neo noir always is, as like real personal betrayal, like personal murder, personal hardships are always mired in the background of these huge political plays. Um, these huge corporate power moves made by the rich, wealthy, and beautiful, that the poor, who end up being like the victims or victimized by economic opportunity or like economic privilege, they become victimized by those situations, but like they're almost so insignificant as to not even fully understand the full scope of betrayal. I think Rob Thomas is a genius when it comes to juggling all of these different themes. Uh, and I think that Veronica translates into books extremely well. Like I've read, Buffy books and Firefly books and all sorts of shit. But these, obviously written by the creator himself with Jennifer Graham as a co-writer. Um, and Veronica Mars, there is, since it's partly neo-noir influenced, there is this kind of dime store, uh, cheap novel um, component to the show as a whole, anyway. And the quips translate well. The quips hit every time. It's still really witty. It's still really provocative, and it's still incredibly moving. And I think it translates perfectly into books. And Rob Thomas understands the character dynamics and their limitations better than anyone else. And the fact these are books, other considerations could be made. You have the license to do certain things that you certainly would be more penalized for if it was in television or film. Um, I think that that's where the $1,000 tan line really shines, because we all love Logan and Veronica. I love Logan and Veronica. Logan and Veronica are a perfect couple. It's just that Rob Thomas understands that the appeal to their relationship is also the tragedy of the relationship. They can't be together. They don't work together cinematically. They work well in our imagination. They work well in our mind's eye of happily ever after. But Veronica Mars and Logan Echolls are two of the most damaged characters in all of teen drama. And if you put them together, they can't last, because Logan starts to change, starts to mature, and Veronica despises him for it and actually becomes less attracted to him for that. Well, she doesn't despise him for it. She projects onto Logan her inability to cope with her own anger and her own toxic traits. I love Veronica Mars. She's my hero, but we'll get into that component of her character, the toxic erotic component of Veronica Mars, when we cover season four, because Rob Thomas masterfully deconstructs their relationship in it. But he understands that you can't have them together because they will self-destruct as a couple. That's why they didn't work in season three. That's a large part of why season three didn't work. What we like from Veronica and Logan is seeing them come together and collide in a romantic way, in a dire way, and in tragic forms. That's why the film is so good, because it's about them getting back together, but we don't actually like to see them together. And that's the tragedy of Logan and Veronica. And the $1,000 tan line has the opportunity to keep them removed because it takes place after the movie, right? And he's overseas for like 6 months in the Middle East. And the conversations that Veronica and Logan do have are stilted or jeopardized by the technology that they're using to speak to each other through. Very disconnected, literally. Often calls are dropped, emails go unread, and it's the only way that they can stay together. Here, you get some seeds laid for the future struggles that Veronica Mars will have in season 4. Not as interesting to me because in season 4, that's done so well. Uh, you have to keep them apart or else it doesn't work. And that's what the whole character study of season 4 is about. It's about forcing them together, forcing Veronica Mars to face the idea of maturity, of a notion of forever, of security. But she's far too much of an adrenaline junkie, and there's a selfish part of her romantic identity that punishes Logan for maturing and becoming a little bit more sophisticated as a man. In order for Veronica to have growth, Logan can't be there. It's really weird. It's really weird. She only grows when she can collide with Logan in an erotic context, but when she's stuck with him, like once they've kissed and defied the odds, right? 2 years later and they're still together, that's when Veronica feels boring. She feels that she's a boring person when she does. All of this stuff I'll be talking about in season 4. I'm just saying that part of the structure of the $1,000 tan line that I really appreciate is how easy it is to keep them separate. And I think that it's a more subtle way, and a more like natural and practical way of saying that there are differences between them by actually using like technology, a symbol of ultra-modernism that keeps them apart, that keeps their conversations feeling contrived, because they're always timed and there's always delays due to, Skype phone calls or Zoom or whatever they were using here. And it also gives Veronica an out because she does like it when Logan is doing dangerous shit. And she's like, I don't want to know, but I do want to know. It's that kind of thing. They're I can't wait to talk about season 4 with you all because that's where Veronica Mars is truly investigated as an adult character. And it's kind of unforgiving, you know. The cost is huge in season 4. The character study of Veronica Mars comes at a huge, unreasonable cost. But we'll talk about that when we get to season 4. I think these books are well structured, well plotted. I think that Aurora Scott is a fascinating villain here. I think you can see a lot of Veronica in Aurora. Like they're not related, but you can totally feel something of a stepsister from hell in the energy of the scenes where she's like tied up on the rug. And I think her father is also tied up in that same scenario. And you can see Leanne in Aurora, and you can see a vitriol for Leanne in Aurora. You can see certain parts of Veronica in Aurora that I think are necessary things for this character to challenge. A certain part of her anger, her youthful anger that she will never outgrow. Once again, though, in season 4, we'll actually be talking about a protege for Veronica Mars, who is a lot more reasonable and sensible than Aurora Scott. Aurora Scott, I just like this antagonistic quality here. And I like that Leanne has been made a mark, been made a fool, because Leanne conned Veronica and Keith for an extremely long time and hurt them a lot. And it's interesting to see Veronica come to her aid and then see that her own mother has been made a complete mark and a fool of. Um, and I guess I just like Aurora Scott's energy, her style. I like the idea of like she was raised by a con man to con people. And then when Tanner Scott tries to change, she's like, no, this isn't what we do. We do what we do. We do it, and you can see parallels between Veronica and Keith. Like Keith being mad at Veronica for wanting to be a private investigator as opposed to a lawyer, like he dreamt of for her. He dreamt of a different sort of future for her. But at the end of the day, it's like, Dad, what the fuck do you expect? You raise your daughter in a certain way, and she wants to be like you. If you don't want her to be a private investigator, that's a form of self-hatred that you're projecting onto your daughter, which can be abusive no matter how old your daughter is. And no matter the morality of the occupation that your daughter is trying to pursue, like a private investigator or like a con artist and a criminal, like Aurora Scott learned how to do that from watching her father do that effortlessly for all of her youth, and she wants to grow up to be like her father. Once again, Tanner Scott's self-hatred projecting onto his daughter. His daughter rebels against that as if abused, as if slighted, because she was both of those things in a certain kind of way, because all she was trying to do was be like her father. She is a product of who raised her, ultimately. And who knows? This is a more hopeful meeting with Leanne and also Hunter, Veronica's related half brother, who she meets. You know, seems like it could be adorable. But Mr. Kiss and Tell, yeah, it's a bit more intense and it's a bit more graphic and it's a bit more on the shady side of Neptune. But I like Leo. Leo is cool. I just don't actually give a fuck about Leo, I guess. I like Leo as he's used in season 4, you know, as this temptation that there's part of Veronica that she's maybe never going to be able to completely outgrow, but she can deconstruct it and learn from it and mature from it and almost buy into its $1 million smile and charm, right? Because Leo is a cool guy. It's just I don't want to read about him. I don't like him that much. But maybe you do. But once again, season 4, Leo's a lot more interesting there. These are good primers. These are good. uh, I say read them if you're a big Veronica Mars fan. But they're not like completely necessary, right? They're not. I think that diehard marshmallows can pretend that you have to read them, but you don't. But every self-respecting one should at least listen to the audiobook of $1,000 Tan Line because Kristen Bell reads it. And every so often, I mean, once again, I mean, she's just great at voice work, always has been great at voice work. So her reading is really exceptional. But for me, you do get some opportunities to hear her impersonations of the inflections of the speech patterns of her co-stars, you know? Like you can hear her do a Jason Doring or or an Enrico. You can hear her do everybody. And she has those speech patterns down packed and it's really, really enjoyable. And yeah, she reads in a very suspenseful and meaningful way too. She's always been good at voice work. I remember being a kid playing Assassin's Creed and being like, man, this is such a compelling character. And learning it was Kristen Bell. It was wild. Renaissance woman, right? But these are two really good books. And if you're a fan of Veronica, definitely read them. They are, I believe Rob Thomas claims, 98% canon. I don't know where that 2% isn't, but I mean, that's up for him to decide to forget. But really, you read this, and it might make season 4 a little bit more sophisticated or more heavy, or make it feel more cohesive, right? Because I think a lot of people's problems with season 4 were like they felt like they were being blindsided by a lot of the themes that they were exploring. But I guess if you read the books, you're kind of mentally prepared for these dilemmas, especially between Veronica and Logan, and also how seedier, how much more corrupt Neptune has just got as a place. You know, I guess these are definitely good to prepare you for how far season 4 is willing to go in its character study of Veronica Mars. Season 4, I think, is a masterful season, and that's what we're going to be talking about next. I hope you enjoyed my videos about these books. I don't have too much to say about them, but I find them extremely entertaining. And I do recommend them because it's something else. Because I love the structure of the show, at least the first two seasons, and I do really admire the structure of the 2014 film as well. I love Rob Thomas's ability to plot a narrative and to actually see it like spelled out for you. It makes it, if you're like me and you like reading deeply into structure and narrative decisions and things like that, the scope, reading it, it kind of just illustrates it perfectly for you. So you're like, oh my God, there is such a literary component. There is like this narrative approach is really beautiful to see actually spelled out for you. Um, you can see where there's a science to the tragedy, and that's what I love most about it, I guess, is these are kind of like peeks behind the curtain of Rob Thomas's very peculiar and unique genius. And yeah, I love Veronica Mars in any form, but especially especially in ones that I think elevate her character, and the books do that. I love Veronica Mars to death, no matter what form she takes. Thank you for watching. I'm your cult boyfriend. Yeah. Yeah, next week, season 4. I'm ready. Are you?